Today I'm going to take a look at this Zoje desktop blind hemmer. It's model number zoje-500. Being a tabletop unit, it's quite portable, a little bit like a domestic machine really. It's sort of positioned in between a domestic and an industrial machine. So let's take a wee look at what we've got in the box here. There's the instruction manual there. A foot controller, so more like a domestic type foot controller there. A box of bits there that I'll go through, show you what they are all about. Here's the blind hammer here. Got the inspection notice there. Just need to install the presser foot lifter as such. This is the lever that lowers the arm to allow you to put the fabric in under the foot there as such. It's a little bit different to a standard machine, and it's got a little knee pad here. I'm just positioning this little clamp here in between the two lugs there on the pad, and then should be able to just put that down there and tighten up the lock screw there, the bolt, finger tighten that, and that just pops on just like a bayonet fitting there, and that allows you to drop this here to remove the fabric like that. So a blind hammer is quite an unusual looking machine, a little bit different looking to a normal sewing machine. But if you're not sure what a blind hammer does, I'll show you. You can see that we've got 3 layers of fabric here. It's folded under in just like a rolled type hem, and then the machine actually stitches through. You'll see in a minute, I'll show you, but it stitches through this. It's got a curved needle that hooks in and catches this under layer here. This is the layer that you would see. Catches that and hooks basically just sews the hem onto this layer here. And if we have a look, that's just a chain stitch, so you can actually unravel the stitch there. But if we have a look on the other side, you'll see that it's virtually invisible. And that's because the needle is just catching the top layer of this piece of fabric here, or it's more like the inside layer of this piece of fabric, and it leaves a very nice blind hem. And applications normally curtains, drapes, and likes of pant legs, dress trouser, pant hems and things like that, skirts, dresses, things like that. If we have a look around the back of the machine here, we've got a spool holder here, and we can install the thread stand just in through the little hole here and this clamp. It's got an Allen key grub screw, and we just want to line it up so that this loop here is directly above the spool pin holder here. And we'll just tighten that up, the Allen key there, and this here is a little bit loose, so I'll just tighten that there. In the bag of goodies there, we've got a little screwdriver, pair of tweezers there, some Allen keys, a little bottle of oil there, spare needle. You can see if we have a close look at the needle here, you can see the needle there is a curved needle with a flat on this side here, so that's the action that it takes. It scoops into the fabric there. And we've got a little spanner there, an 8 and a 10mm spanner, and the clamp. This is the clamp that holds the machine So this clamp here holds the machine to the desktop, because when you're using this knee lever here, it takes quite a bit of force to drop this arm down, and that could cause the machine to sort of slide on the desk there. So you can clamp this down here. This little hook there just goes into the little locator, and then we can, if you bring the machine close to the edge, can clamp the machine to the table like that. So I would say that the machine's been oiled in the factory, but I would probably, just as a matter of course, I would go around and oil the oil holes here and few there, and then we'll thread the machine. This thread is a nylon, like a special blind hemming type thread. It's a very fine nylon type thread here, so that's that's designed to make it just harder to see. The thread there conceals the thread. For today's demonstration, I'm going to be threading in just a standard sort of thread here. This is a metrocene. It's a lot thicker than you'd normally use on a blind hemmer, but it's going to be easier to see the stitches. So go ahead and thread the machine, and normally you would use like industrial cones. This sort of thread here comes on industrial cones. It sits on this, so this little stabilizer here, designed to go up inside the cone of an industrial type thread. But today we'll just use this domestic thread here. Go ahead and thread it up through the top loop here, like so. What we could do is we could tie on here and pull the thread through from here, and then just thread through the needle. But for this demonstration, I'll unthread the machine here so I can show you the threading path here. It's fairly straightforward. We'll start by threading the tensioner here. So I'll get you a side-on view there, so just so that you can get a better view of this. So first of all, you come through the little thread guide at the back there, and then underneath this little bar here. So go under the bar, and then you want to make sure that the thread pops in between the discs, these two tension discs here, and lies over the top, and then comes through the next eyelet there, and just pulls through nicely like that. And next is to come from this eyelet here straight through from back to front, this eyelet here, and then down, straight down from left to right, that eyelet there. And then make sure that the needle is at its left hand throw, so I'm turning the machine in operating direction there. Make sure that this is off to the left here, and then thread from underneath to the top there through the needle eye, and then just pull the thread through like that. I'll unravel this here. It creates a chain stitch, so you can actually unravel the thread, and you might think that that's a disadvantage, but there's a way you can finish the seam to make sure that the the chain doesn't pull back and undo your seam. This little flatbed attachment, I'll just swing that out of the way in the meantime. A little lock butterfly screw there. Swing that out of the way. Got the free arm here, and that allows you to sew very small tubular type work, the likes of a for instance a sleeve. Like if you had a garment that had a sleeve like so, you can pop that across the free arm there and hem the sleeve up. First things first though, I've got the foot controller here. This plug here plugs into the side of the machine here. That can only go one way, and then power plug into the wall socket and turned on. So just bear in mind that whenever you see this drop down like that, I'm using my knee here. I've changed to a sort of a light blue fabric here, hopefully just to give a better, I think the black might be a bit dark for the camera. So anyway, I'm positioning the edge of the hem here against this guide here, and that guides the seam through, and that's so the needle will catch the underlayer and the hem layer, if you like. And so now we should be able to just buzz down here. I'll try and get you a different angle on this here so that we can see. If we have a look, I'll go a little bit further. And here you can see the result there. This nice blind hem here is catching the hem nicely there. And if we have a look on the other side, you can hardly see any sign of the seam, which is the whole idea. You can probably see tiny little dimples, but after a pressing that quite often comes out as well. So, and this is just sort of a thin cotton sheeting as well. So there's the end result there. Quite a nice seam there. Get you a close look at how this all works here. I'm using this guide here to butt the hem up against, and that guides it through so that the edge of the hem here is in the correct place. So if I just turn slowly here, you'll see the action of the needle coming through. It's hooking in the underlayer there, and then comes through and pierces the hem layer and comes all the way to the right hand side there. Then the looper comes in here and picks the thread up off the needle here, just like that. And then the action of the looper, so it flips over. You can see there that there's this area here where the thread comes, where the needle comes back through and ties the thread off. So coming back, needle's coming back to the left, and now the needle's coming to the right again, hooks through that loop there, and the action just repeats itself like so. And that is what a blind hemmer does. So I've come off the guide down here in the front, so it's not going to line up all that well, but that gives you an idea of how this works. And you can also see the feed dog at the back doing its action. So it's lifting now, coming forward, dropping, clamping the fabric and pulling it through like that. And that's it pretty much for, you know, a blind hemmer. There's this adjustment here that determines how deeply the needle digs in to the bottom layer. So this layer where the hem needs to join to this bottom layer here, if the needle sort of skims across the top of this layer and doesn't hook into it, you can adjust this here to make the needle dig in more down here, and vice versa. If the needle's digging in too far, and you can see on the back, you can see the threads coming through, you can adjust this here to digging a bit less here, so that's an adjustment there. There's also a lever here. It's set at the moment to no skip, so that's 1:1, so that's for every stitch the needle will dig in and penetrate the under layer. You can also set this lever here to skip. Just pull that down to skip. That means that the needle's only going to penetrate the bottom layer every second stitch, and you know that's okay. It just creates a longer distance between where the needle penetrates the lower layer, and that just makes the seam even harder to see on the other side. And as long as you can get away with that, you can use this 2:1, but generally 1:1 is the standard mode there. And you've got this tension adjuster here as well. Now I've just demonstrated that here. The thread is looking a little bit loose here, so I tightened the tension to make it look a little bit nicer. You know, down here a little bit further, it's looking a bit better. So you know, that's really dependent on what type of thread you're using, what type of fabrics, things like that. Just a note here also, when you've finished the seam, you use the knee lever, you bring the needle to the left hand throw here, and then lower the arm, and then just a quick pull of the fabric here to break the thread, like that, and that ties the thread off the seam there so that it won't unravel. You can see there I'm pulling that thread and it's not going to unravel. But normally you would come right up to the edge of the seam here. If you wanted to be 100% safe, you could pull extra thread out when you, instead of pulling that really quickly and breaking the thread, you could pull the thread out, trim it, and then tie a little knot there to make sure that the seam stays intact and doesn't unravel back. But yeah, that's looking good there. So that's the basics really of the blind hemmer. Industrial blind hemmers are fairly similar. They're normally a little bit wider in this, you know, this respect here. This arm's normally a bit wider. You've got a little bit more room down in here on an industrial machine, and they're normally installed onto a full industrial size table with a motor attached to the underside of the bench, or direct drive motor. That's it for this one. I hope you found that interesting, and thank you very much for watching.